Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Prasar Bharati. Coming up in the next hour. As part of a peace push to end conflict, US-Ukraine hold talks on mineral deal, while Zelensky calls for work on military deployment. US and Iran to begin critical nuclear talks as Trump threatens war, while Iran ready to give it a genuine chance for diplomacy. Amid the global trade war, Taiwan, one of the first to talk tariffs with US, two sides exchange views on reciprocal tariffs. In an ongoing counter-terror operation in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar, two more terrorists neutralized, toll mounts to 3. US and Ukrainian officials held tense talks on a proposal that would grant the US access to Ukraine's significant mineral wealth, including rare earth minerals like lithium, titanium and zirconium. These minerals are crucial for high-tech products, and Ukraine has deposits of 20 critical raw minerals worth several $1 trillion. The US wants access to Ukraine's mineral deposits and require Kyiv to place in a joint investment fund all income from the exploitation of natural resources by Ukrainian state and private firms, though the proposed deal doesn't include US security guarantees for Ukraine's fight against Russia. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky calls on allies to make progress on a possible military deployment that could act as a deterrent against future Russian attacks after a halt in fighting.
You know that Ukraine has a shortage of air defense systems. You know that Patriot systems can effectively protect against ballistic threats. You also know that we are forced to move the systems we have around the country to give at least temporary protection to different cities. And you know what happens when even one system goes out of service. It means lost lives. I thank every leader, every country, everyone present here who's working with us on a new format, a format for a guarantee force, the coalition of the willing, a united force that can be part of the future security guarantees for Ukraine and at least our part of Europe after this war.
Ukraine has once again made a strong pitch for NATO membership, calling it essential for future transatlantic security. Speaking at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum in Turkey on Saturday, Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said that Ukraine's battle-experienced army would be the cheapest possible contribution to transatlantic security.
Ukrainian membership in NATO should not be off the agenda. That's about transatlantic security. That's about our contribution. Ukraine now has 110 brigades with daily combat experience. And of course, it will be a realistic, true contribution in a future transatlantic security. And by the way, the most cheapest one.
And DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh is joining us live from New Delhi. Hi, Shubhendu. Good evening to you. US and Ukraine, reopen talks on contentious minerals deal. What is the latest you're getting for us on this?
That's right, Siddharth. Good afternoon. Difficult rounds of negotiations are taking place between the representatives of the United States and Ukraine. This meeting is underway in Washington. It started on Friday. It has been inconclusive. It is not one of those negotiations that could have concluded in a day. But the sources informed that the atmosphere, the environment in which this negotiation was taking place was not a very favorable one. A tense atmosphere antagonist positions, almost reminiscent of the kind of atmosphere that prevailed when President Zelensky had visited the White House, some of the sources inform. The reason President Zelensky had earlier flagged that one of the challenges of negotiating with the US is that the Trump administration is revising its proposal of the minerals deal. Now, the latest update, President Trump wants a more expansive, exclusive, privileged access to Ukraine's resources. There's also suggestion of creating an investment fund where all the profits emanating out of minerals trade, rare earth minerals trade, whether it is done by Kiev, whether it's done by private entities in Ukraine, is going to be deposited there. So sort of geographic monetary control over Ukraine's most precious resources, and Ukraine is increasingly finding it difficult to find its own space and autonomy in deciding how it wants to chart its future. Remember, President Zelensky had said that the minerals deal is important if it can be a win-win situation for both US and Ukraine. Ukraine has a Herculean task of reconstruction. The war is still far from over. It needs those funds for reconstruction, but it needs to be really mapped out the manner in which that profit sharing will take place with the United States. For now, it seems that the two sides are not looking in the same direction, given the difficult environment and atmosphere. But the pressure is also high to be able to reach and arrive at some kind of conclusion so that it could also lead then to bringing in ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Indeed, Shubhendu, certainly what the scenario is right now, it doesn't look like that both the countries are going in the same directions. And also there is no security guarantees.
Oh, absolutely. So in that sense, the bargain that Ukrainian President Zelensky had hoped for in the beginning of engaging with the new administration, that security guarantees would be an important part of it. There is absolutely no mention of it. Not just that, remember, if we look at what President Putin had said as one of his conditions for considering ceasefire, large-scale and sustainable ceasefire, it was that NATO members will not be allowed to come to Ukraine for any kind of rescue, peace efforts. The boots on the ground from the NATO will be seen as an escalation and not an attempt at ceasefire. So in that sense, there is no security guarantee. The NATO support in Ukraine in the form of manpower seems unlikely. And it seems in the negotiations that are taking place, Russia clearly appears to have an upper hand. So in that sense, a very, very difficult bargain for Ukraine when it's really bargaining and negotiating on its most important resource without getting what it wants.
You're right, Shubhendu. In fact, Zelensky called on allies to make progress on possible military deployment, that could act as a deterrent against future Russian attacks. But Shubhendu, what's the latest on Russia-Ukraine conflict? Trump's envoy met Putin in St. Petersburg. How US is dealing with Russia in this particular scenario? US is dealing with Ukraine as well, and we have seen the scenario there. Both the countries, like you've just told us, are not going in the same direction. How the United States is dealing with Russia, when it comes to this entire scenario which we have in front of us?
Right. The approach purely, Siddharth, if we talk about the manner in which US appears to be dealing with Russia, it's sort of entirely different. It's for everyone to see. The symbolism is for everyone to interpret. The kind of pressure that is applied on Ukraine is not the same that is applied on Russia. With Russia, there's an approach as if of that of mending ties which have really touched rock bottom. At the most, what President Trump is expressing here is a certain irritation that Russia has still not fallen in line. It still wants to continue with the conflict, as opposed to the kind of treatment that was meted out to President Zelensky when he was invited in the White House. The latest from the Steve Witkoff visit to St. Petersburg to hold talks with President Putin. In the words of the Kremlin spokesperson, one shouldn't expect a breakthrough right now. The two sides, as I mentioned, the relations had touched the rock bottom. They are mending ties. They are trying to come to a platform where talks and negotiations can be taken forward. Just important to recollect President Putin's demands for ceasefire to happen. Number one was that Russia is going to have authority over the land that it has acquired in Ukraine. Ukrainian soldiers would have to vacate and leave. Second, there will be no NATO membership for future for Ukraine, a guarantee for that. No NATO support or peacekeeping force. And fourth, perhaps, most important for Russia's long-term future, all those debilitating economic sanctions that have been put on Russia by US-led West, they will have to be removed. So the host of areas where negotiations are taking place, President Putin is playing a hardball. He sees a certain strategic advantage in the manner in which the conflict stands at the moment. There are important headways Russia is making. It has reclaimed the Kursk region earlier this week. The latest we hear is that in the Sumy region, at the border of Russia and Ukraine, it has taken over a certain village which was earlier under Ukrainian control. Tit for tat, drone attacks continue. And one of the more shocking revelations that came a few days ago, Siddharth, was when President Zelensky of Ukraine said that Russia may be supported by Chinese soldiers. There were 2 soldiers who were caught, and Ukrainian intelligence says there could be as many as 150 Chinese soldiers or Chinese civilians who are fighting for Russia. So in that sense, this conflict is getting complicated before it reaches any possible ceasefire.
Definitely. And Shubhendu, you talked about Ukraine's NATO membership. It has once again made a strong pitch for NATO membership. Do you think it will backfire this time around? Because that's the bone of contention when it comes to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
Well, for Ukraine, of course, it would have been an ideal situation to be able to get a NATO membership. We know the past 3 years of the conflict, there were some points, especially when the West was united, US and the European allies, there was a certain positive momentum. It wouldn't have happened overnight. Either ways, it takes a long time. The conflict first has to end before a new member is inducted. But with the Trump administration's advent, with the kind of sort of destabilizing position that Trump has put the NATO itself, the power that the European allies would have to unilaterally take Ukraine in, it seems highly unlikely. They're themselves right now engaged and engulfed in a tariff war with the United States. Their own economies, their own priorities are taking center stage at the moment. So while President Zelensky continues to push for NATO membership, it seems highly unlikely. What he perhaps would get, what he is getting, all that ammunition and aid that European partners can muster for Ukraine at present.
All right. Thank you so much, Shubhendu. That was the correspondent Shubhendu joining us from New Delhi. When it comes to the United States and Ukraine, the US is dealing with Ukraine with a very different attitude, and US is dealing with Russia with a very different attitude. But what's going to happen, only time will tell. And still to come on DT India NewsHour. US airstrikes on Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen triggered large-scale protests in Sana'a. Gabon holds general elections today to elect new president. Bolivian Minister of Government announces that police have detained 3 people. Stay with us to know more.
Why is there such an angst over historical characters? The portrayal of India's history.
Our history is still not Bharat's history. The history, which we were taught, which we read, is like the history of, the invaders.
If you try to consistently erase the truth and lie about the truth and consistently spread falsehoods, they were so prejudiced and so hell-bent on pushing their own ideological political agenda.
A historian is first Marxist or first communist, and then he behaves like a historian.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music,
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Iran and the United States will begin crucial talks on Saturday to reach a new nuclear deal in an effort to ease tensions and avert another conflict in West Asia. Iran's negotiating team, led by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, arrived in Muscat on Saturday for high-level discussions with Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff. Iran's top diplomat said that his country seeks a fair and honorable deal with the US hours before the start of talks between the two sides.
Our intention is to reach a fair and honorable agreement from an equal position, and if the other side also comes from the same position, then hopefully there will be a chance for an initial understanding that will lead to a path of negotiations.
Donald Trump has given Iran a 2-month deadline to accept a deal that would lead to Iran shrinking its nuclear footprint or eliminating its program altogether. Trump said ahead of high-stakes weekend talks over the state's nuclear program that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon.
I want them not to have a nuclear weapon. I want Iran to be a wonderful, great, happy country. But they can't have a nuclear weapon. And we're negotiating with them on Saturday with the currency of choice. We're always going to be, as long as you have somebody smart. And you know what? If a nation said we're not going to be on the dollar, I would tell you that within about one phone call, they would be back on the dollar. You always have to keep the dollar.
All right, and Ravi Joshi, who is a visiting fellow, Observer Research Foundation, is joining us live on this. Hi, Mr. Ravi. Thank you so much, first of all, for joining in on the broadcast. We just heard Donald Trump saying that he wants Iran to be a wonderful, great, happy country, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. Now, with high-stakes talks between both the nations, how do you analyze it? Is it just an exploratory session?
Yes, you're right in saying whether it's an exploratory talks. Yes, this is actually what is called as talks about talks.
Yeah.
There was a lot of uncertainty about these talks, whether it will happen as a direct talks or indirect talks. And finally, it now seems to be a direct talks because the Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, has come and Steve Witkoff has come.
Yeah.
Steve Witkoff is much closer to Trump than his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, because Steve Witkoff is an old golf partner of Trump. And Trump trusts this man to be the troubleshooter, and he sends him to talk to Russia, talk to Ukraine, and talk to the West Asian leaders, and now he is talking to Iranian leaders. This is a surprising outcome. But actually, Siddharth, if you see the developments, how it has taken place in the last 1 week, it is very clear as to what exactly are Trump's motives and what are Israel's motives here. This announcement that Trump is going to have direct talks with Iran next weekend, that means today and yesterday, he announced it on April 7th, Monday, while having discussions with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the Oval Office. So obviously this did not come as a surprise to Benjamin Netanyahu, but it came as a surprise to the whole world. Because Benjamin Netanyahu, whenever he comes to Washington and White House, he comes to seek security guarantees for his country. And Trump has been an extremely close friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, even during his first term, and they have got along as like a house on fire. And this relationship was not exactly the same when President Obama or Biden were in the White House. So Netanyahu now feels that he can actually get Trump to manage his security problems in the region, in West Asia, by pushing Trump in the direction that he wants. So the biggest threat for Israel is actually Iran, the most important threat. So he has to neutralize Iran and its nuclear program. This has been his ambition for the last 10 years, or even more. And this is while Israel is having nuclear weapons, reportedly about 100 nuclear weapons. Now, Iran is a very important player in the region because it controls 3 important proxies which are creating trouble for Israel. The Hamas in Gaza, the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis, who are creating trouble for Saudi Arabia, another great partner of America. So by winning over Iran or by having peace talks with Iran and neutralizing its proxies, Trump will be achieving a major tectonic change in the West Asian region. This will benefit not only Israel, it will also benefit Saudi Arabia. So this is the background of this talks which are happening today.
Sir, also we were talking about direct and indirect talks. There was perhaps a dispute over just how the negotiation would go. Trump insisted there'll be direct negotiations. However, Iran's foreign minister said he would be speaking indirectly through a mediator to US, Middle East convoy, Witkoff. I would like to ask you that what impact would direct and indirect negotiations make according to you?
Well, indirect talks would mean that Oman foreign minister would be the negotiator, and both Iran and US would seek the negotiator or the intermediary to act as their representative or as their moderator in the talks. But anyway, that is the material now. That entire discussion is meaningless because Steve Witkoff, who is the right-hand man of Trump, is meeting Abbas Araghchi, and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, has already declared that Abbas Araghchi is going to Oman with my full authority to negotiate a deal with US. So that now clearly rules out any indirect talks. It is direct talks. Now here I would like to add something more. What are the objectives of US and what are the objectives of Iran in going for a peace deal or a negotiation? Now, the best negotiated settlement between US and Iran and the P5+1 had actually come about in the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was signed by President Obama and Obama's Secretary of State, John Kelly, and 5 other heads of states or their representatives in Vienna in 2015. That was the best possible deal which could have actually been worked out between US and Iran. What was the deal about? See, the deal said that Iran will first of all limit its uranium enrichment to 5% or below 5%. So that it will never reach nuclear enrichment which would entail stockpiling of nuclear energy, nuclear refined fuel. Okay, so Iran agreed to that. Iran came down to saying that, okay, we will enrich our nuclear fuel only up to 3.6%, which is enough to produce electricity. That is what Iran's stated objective is. And Iran's supreme leader has repeatedly said that we do not want a nuclear weapon. We want a nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. Now, this was to be the case. Iran was to come down to 3.6% enrichment, and immediately America and the West were supposed to relax all the sanctions that imposed on Iran.
Yes.
So that also started gradually happening. So they started, America unfroze the funds, Iranian funds that were held in American banks, and the amounts were transferred. A substantial amount, about $500 billion were transferred during Obama's time to Iran. So slowly the relief from sanctions was coming to Iran. But then the elections happened in America, and Trump came to power in 2016, and soon after that,
he pulled out of the deal.
Yeah, he pulled out. He tore up the JCPOA. Okay, so now we are back to square one.
Yeah.
Now he wants a peace deal with Iran, but already Iran has breached the limits set upon its own nuclear enrichment. It has gone up to 60%. It is now enriching uranium at 60%, which is very close to the bomb material, which is 90%. So even now, it is still well within the medical research definition. It has not gone up to the bomb level, which is what Netanyahu has been telling. But the breakout time, the time required for Iran to produce enough nuclear fuel to make a bomb and to have a weaponized nuclear weapon, which is deliverable, is still 1 to 2 years. It is not, though Netanyahu says it has now come down to a few months. So the West believes Netanyahu, but Iran has its own reasons to say that we are nowhere near the breakout time. So that is the present state of play than US and Iran. And if US and Iran actually come to a peaceful, negotiated settlement on Iran's nuclear program and stop it or reduce the enrichment level, it will be a great achievement. It will be a significant game changer in the region. It will enable Iran to have good relations with Saudi Arabia, UAE, and also possibly to reduce tensions between Iran and Israel.
Okay.
So, anything more, Siddharth?
Yeah, sir, definitely. We leave it there, sir. Thank you so much for joining in on this broadcast. And US airstrikes on Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen triggered large-scale protests in Sana'a on Friday as tensions between the United States and the Houthis continue to escalate. Mass protests erupted on Friday in southern Sana'a's 70 Square, where protesters raised the flags of Yemen and Palestine and shouted slogans denouncing the escalated US airstrikes, which have increasingly targeted civilian infrastructure. The confrontation between the Houthis and US forces has intensified in recent weeks. American warplanes have bombed several Houthi-controlled locations, including Sana'a. Meanwhile, the US aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson has arrived in the Red Sea, joining the USS Harry S. Truman, which was already deployed in the region. In response, the Houthis have launched multiple attacks on US naval assets. On Friday, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saraya said in a statement that the group had carried out new operations targeting hostile forces, including strikes on the USS Harry S. Truman and hitting 2 military sites in the Israeli city of Jaffa with drones. President Donald Trump insisted on Friday that his tariff policy was doing really well, despite China hiking levies on US goods to 125% in the spiraling trade war between the world's 2 biggest economies. Investors dumped US government bonds, the dollar tumbled, and stocks seesawed after Beijing's retaliation against Trump deepened concerns on already traumatized global markets. Trump sent financial markets into a tailspin by announcing sweeping import taxes on dozens of trade partners last week, only to abruptly roll them back to 10% on Wednesday for 90 days while raising levies on goods from China.
I think the markets were solid today. I think people are saying we're in great shape. We're making a lot of money as a country now for the first time in a long time. We were losing billions of dollars a day, and now we're making billions of dollars a day. It's a big difference. And we then brought it down to 10%. And so that made it a little bit less, but I did that because I wanted to be fair to other people, to other countries.
Meanwhile, the White House said later that Trump remained optimistic about a deal with China and added that 15 other countries have offers on the table during his 90-day pause in their tariffs.
I won't reveal or get ahead of our trade team as these negotiations are obviously ongoing, but I can tell you very good progress has been made. Jameson Greer was on television this morning and I spoke to him, and he confirmed that more than 15 offers are already on the table, which is remarkable in just a mere matter of days. And as I said earlier, we've heard from more than 75 countries around the world.
Taiwan officials held their first tariff talks with US officials on Friday, with both sides looking forward to further discussions soon. The 2 sides exchanged views on a video conference on reciprocal tariffs between Taiwan and the United States, non-tariff barriers to trade, and a number of other economic and trade issues, including export controls. While Taiwan, facing tariffs of 32%, complained they were unfair, it moved quickly to lay out proposals with the United States offering a zero-tariff regime and greater purchases and investments in the country. On Wednesday, US President Donald Trump said he would temporarily lower the hefty duties he had just imposed on dozens of countries, while further ramping up pressure on China. Taiwan has long sought a free trade deal with the United States, even though the two have no formal diplomatic ties. A major development in South Korea's presidential race: Seoul Mayor Oh Si-hoon will not run for president, according to emerging reports. Si-hoon had been seen as a key contender for the Conservative Party nomination, but he has reportedly dropped out of the race. Meanwhile, South Korean opposition leader Lee Jae-myung declared his bid for the presidency this week, promising to fix inequality and spur economic growth. This comes as South Korea prepares for a June 3rd election to replace impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol, who was ousted last week after the Constitutional Court upheld his impeachment over a controversial declaration of martial law in December last year. Gabonese citizens turned out early on Saturday to vote in a pivotal presidential election just months after a military coup reshaped the nation's leadership. The vote comes 19 months after General Brice Oligui Nguema ousted longtime President Ali Bongo, ending over 50 years of dynastic rule. Nguema, now interim leader of the oil-rich Central African country, is the front runner in the presidential race and campaigned nationwide under the slogan, "We Build Together." Bolivian Minister of Government Eduardo del Castillo announces that police have detained 3 people accused of being part of an attempted military coup in 2024 in Bolivia, and that 2 people are still pending arrest. Castillo added that the investigation has managed to determine that there's a group of 5 people who would have also participated, with a vital participation in the failed coup d'etat. Last June, a group of military officers led by the then Army Commander Juan Jose Sonega burst into presidential headquarters in La Paz, but hours later he was arrested. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Demonstrators clashed with police outside Santiago's Monumental Stadium while protesting the deaths of 2 Colo-Colo fans. The fatalities occurred shortly before a match between Chile's Colo-Colo and Brazil's Fortaleza after police blocked around 100 fans trying to enter the stadium. China's Inner Mongolia deployed emergency crews as rare typhoon-like gales swept northern regions on Saturday. The Chinese weather agency said the winds, which began Friday, are expected to persist through the weekend, with gusts reaching up to 150 kilometers per hour. The 2025 Hanoi Tourism Gift Festival kicked off with a vibrant art performance, drawing thousands of locals. Part of a broader campaign to promote the capital's tourism, the 3-day event showcases Hanoi's culture through unique souvenirs, live craft demos, and a virtual reality heritage zone. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. The Africa-India Key Maritime Engagement 2025 is planned for 6 days from 13th to 18th of April.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is on an official visit to Austria, where she addressed the Indian community in Vienna. The minister acknowledged the strong role of the Indian diaspora in Austria and highlighted the important role Indian entrepreneurs play in India's growth journey. She also underscored the promising opportunities for collaboration between Indian and Austrian businesses, particularly in emerging sectors such as startups, fintech, green technologies, and sustainable urban mobility. Further, Sitharaman emphasized the Indian government's ongoing efforts to engage the diaspora in promoting and advancing India's growth story. India's Home Minister Amit Shah today affirmed that both the Union government and the Maharashtra government are committed to developing Raigad Fort, the historic seat of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, as a source of inspiration for the youth of the nation. The Home Minister made the remarks while paying homage and offering floral tributes on the occasion of 345th death anniversary of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj at Raigad Fort in Maharashtra. Amit Shah said that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's enduring message was that the fight for Swaraj or self-rule must never cease. He added that today, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the union government is faithfully following Shivaji Maharaj's vision and working tirelessly to establish India as a beacon of hope for the entire world.
चारों ओर आदिलशाही, मुगलशाही, निजामशाही से घिरा हुआ ये महाराष्ट्र हिंदवी स्वराज में बदल गया और कुछ ही सालों में यहां से अटक से कटक तक, बंगाल तक, दक्षिण में तमिलनाडु तक, गुजरात समेत समग्र देश को स्वराज का स्वप्न सफल होता हुआ दिखाई पड़ा.
2 more terrorists were killed in an ongoing operation in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar district on Saturday in a major success for security forces, resulting in foiling of Pakistan's ceasefire violation. Top Jaish-e-Mohammed commander Saifullah has been neutralized along with 2 other Pakistani terrorists in an ongoing encounter. So far, 3 JEM, in fact, terrorists have been confirmed dead. Saifullah had been active in the Kishtwar and Doda regions for a long time with a bounty of 500,000 rupees on his head, a large cache of arms and ammunition, including 1 AK-47 rifle, 1 M4 American assault rifle, and other warlike stores have been recovered from the encounter site. Addressing a joint press conference, Commander of Assam Rifles 5th Sector, Brigadier JBS Rathi, emphasized that security forces will continue the operation until all terrorists present in the area are neutralized.
On 9th of April, joint teams of Indian Army, the Jammu and Kashmir Police and the CRPF was launched in the dense forest of Kishtwar to nab the group of terrorists. In the operation, the troops displayed great tactical acumen and swiftness and ensured zero casualty to on troops.
And Kailash Nath, DD India correspondent, joining us live from Kishtwar, Jammu and Kashmir. Kailash, what is the current situation there now?
Yes, sir. On 9 April, on a specific inputs, Indian Army started a search operation in upper reach area of Chhatro. 11 RR Rashtriya Rifle reached spot in a Chhatro Naidgam area and start search operation. During search operation, terrorists tried to escape and left behind a few bags, in which 7 sleeping bags were found as per my sources. And after the reinforcement reached the spot and started heavy search operation in the area, yesterday 1 terrorist eliminated, and today in a press conference, joint press conference by Indian Army 9 Sector Commander and DK Doda Kishtwar Ramban Range DIG Sridhar Patil inform us that 2 more terrorists eliminated in the area. On the question of DD News whether these terrorists belong to Pakistan and Saifullah is identified, they inform us that this is the matter of investigation, yet we did not identify all terrorists whether they belong to Pakistan and Saifullah is killed or not. But as per my sources, all 3 terrorists belong to Pakistan and they are active in the area from last 1 year in the area and trying to disturb the area.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you so much, Kailash, for joining in. In India's central state of Chhattisgarh, a joint team of security forces gunned down 3 Naxals in the forest area of Indravati in Bijapur district on Saturday. The bodies of the Naxals have been recovered and a large quantity of ammunition and explosive materials has been seized from the encounter site. The encounter and search operation are ongoing. State Police's Special Task Force and District Reserve Guard jointly conducted the operation based on the intelligence of the presence of Naxals. Under the Lone Varatu campaign, meaning Come Back Home, in Bastar district of Chhattisgarh, 8 Naxalites surrendered to the state police on Saturday. Among the surrendered Naxals, 2 of them carried rewards of 50,000 each by Chhattisgarh government. These Naxals were involved in activities such as digging roads and putting up Naxalite banners and posters in their respective areas. Under the ongoing campaign, a total of 961 Naxals, including 226 with rewards, have surrendered and joined the mainstream of society. The National Investigation Agency to continue grilling the 26/11 attack key conspirator Tahavvur Rana. And as per reports, Rana is reportedly avoiding most questions on the account of not knowing the answers and not presenting satisfactory responses to the NIA investigation. A special NIA court on Friday sent Tahavvur Hussain Rana, the accused in the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, to NIA custody for 18 days and has proceeded with the second day of investigation. He was brought to India from the United States and had arrived in Delhi on Thursday. Rana was first brought before the special NIA court on Thursday evening. The Africa-India Key Maritime Engagement 2025 is planned for 6 days from 13th to 18th of April and includes participation from 8 nations alongside the co-hosts India and Tanzania. Indian naval ships were welcomed in Tanzania's Dar es Salaam's port upon arrival with a ceremonial guard on board INS Chennai. Chief of the Naval Staff of India, Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi, is on an official visit to Tanzania from 12th to 16th of this month to inaugurate the maiden edition of Africa-India Key Maritime Engagement to be held on Sunday. The initiative aligns with the vision of Prime Minister Modi and promotes mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across regions. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met Italy's visiting Deputy Prime Minister Antonio Tajani in the national capital on Friday. During the meeting, both the leaders reviewed bilateral cooperation and its advancement in trade, investment, IMEC, maritime, security, research, technology, education and culture domains. The leaders also exchanged views on contemporary global developments, including in Europe, Mediterranean and West Asia. Also pledged to continuous partnership in develop and evolve guided by the Joint Strategic Action Plan 2025-29 agreed by the leadership. Let's take a look at other stories making news. Chief of the Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, visited the Indian Army's Vajra Corps to assess its operational preparedness along the western borders. The Army Chief expressed his satisfaction with the seamless synergy among the Indian Air Force, Border Security Force, Punjab Police and other stakeholders in safeguarding both the border and the hinterland. Wreath-laying ceremony of Indian Army's junior commissioned officer Subedar Kuldeep Chand of 9 Punjab was held on Saturday in Jammu and Kashmir. The officer laid down his life while leading a counter-infiltration operation along the line of control in Keri Battle area of Sundarbani on Friday. India's Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting and Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. L. Murugan, attended Tamil Janam News Channel Anniversary program in Chennai. During his address, Union Minister Dr. Murugan stated that OTT platforms have been permitted to operate without restrictions to safeguard creative freedom. The minister also announced plans for a WAVE summit on creativity to be held in Mumbai next month. Teachers and non-teaching staff members continue protests in front of the School Service Commission office in Indian state of West Bengal. The protesting teachers were those who lost their job after the Supreme Court verdict over widespread irregularities by the SSC, including appointments of candidates who appeared for the 2016 exams. Padma Shri awardee and renowned environmentalist Daripalli Ramaiah, widely known as 1GV Ramaiah, passed away after suffering a heart attack. The 88-year-old Green Crusader was undergoing treatment at Khammam Government Hospital in Telangana, where he breathed his last. Meanwhile, PM Modi condoled the demise of India's leading green crusader in an ex-post, saying Daripalli Ramayya Garu will be remembered as a champion of sustainability. He devoted his life to planting and protecting lakhs of trees. His tireless efforts reflected a deep love for nature and care for future generations. His work will keep motivating our youth in their quest to build a greener planet. My thoughts are with his family and admirers in this sad hour. Om Shanti. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. La Liga leaders Barcelona lock horns with Leganés in an away game on Sunday. Magnus Carlsen held to draw by Fabiano Caruana in the semi-final of freestyle chess Grand Slam. England's highest test wicket-taker James Anderson receives the honour of knighthood.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Embark on a timeless journey. Unravel the mysteries of a grandiose era. A treasure trove of royal and sacred complexes, temples, shrines, pillared halls, mandapas, rock-cut memorials and more. A spectacular setting of rugged landscape and exemplary workmanship, representing the best of Dravidian architecture. Every structure carved out as a unique artistic creation. A heritage landmark that reflects pure.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj and time now for sport. And in IPL, Sunrisers Hyderabad are set to host the Punjab Kings in the second IPL match of the day in Hyderabad on Saturday. Punjab Kings have kicked off the season in style, winning 3 out of their first 4 matches with impressive performances. Shreyas Iyer and Priyansh Arya both are in excellent forms and can be expected to wreak havoc on the batting-friendly pitch. After enduring 4 consecutive losses, Sunrisers really need to turn things around quickly, otherwise their journey could take a serious hit in the coming week. FIFA President Gianni Infantino continued his whistle-stop tour of the 2025 Club World Cup host cities on Friday. Infantino made a visit to Cincinnati's TQL Stadium, which is set to host 4 group stage matches at the tournament, beginning with Bayern Munich's opening match against Auckland City. Of the 11 host cities, Infantino has taken a stop in Atlanta, Pasadena, Charlotte, Nashville, Orlando and Philadelphia so far. The first edition of the expanded 32-team Club World Cup kicks off at Hard Rock Stadium on June 14th, with New Jersey's MetLife Stadium hosting the final on July 13th. La Liga leaders Barcelona are set to lock horns with Leganés and in an away game on Sunday. While Barcelona have the opportunity to extend their advantage in the league standings, Leganés are placed 18th with 28 points, 2 points below the safety zone. Barcelona will also be aiming to avenge the surprising 1-0 home loss they suffered against Leganés in December.
Oh, they defend really well. but also especially in the set pieces in our match was really good. But they know how to attack, how to attack the deep. So we have to take care about that, and then of course we have to focus on this match because we are now the first in the table and want to show that. We want to show that, and of course they are fighting to stay in the league, and it will be a tough match.
The Indian women's tennis team defeated Chinese Taipei 2-1 in Pune for its third straight win in the Billie Jean King Cup Asia Oceania Group 1 title. Tie, in fact, the victory pushed the hosts to second place on the points table and within touching distance of a coveted playoff spot. Vaidehi Chaudhary provided India with a perfect start with a 6-2, 5-7, 6-4 win over Lin Fang An. And in the second singles match, Shrivali Bhamidi Pati beat Joanna Garland 6-2, 7-6. Shrivali maintained her perfect round record in the tournament, registering her fourth consecutive win. The top two teams from the group will qualify for the playoffs scheduled in November. India will take on the Republic of Korea in their fifth and final match of the Billie Jean King Cup on Saturday. Kazakhstan became the first team to secure their place in the Billie Jean King Cup finals after a 3-0 win over Colombia. Alina Rybakina and Yulia Putintseva both comfortably won their singles matches. Putintseva got ball rolling again for her country by mowing down Colombian debutante Valentina Arias 6-0, 6-1 in the Premier Women's Team event, while number 10 Rybakina was equally dominant in her clash with Juliana Lizarazo, winning 5 out of 7 break points to secure a 6-1, 6-2 win and book her nation a spot in the knockout stages for the third time. Zarina Diaz and Zibek won the doubles match to complete the whitewash. England's all-time highest test wicket taker James Anderson was awarded a knighthood for services to cricket. Anderson, who made his test debut in 2003, retired from international duty in July last year after his 188th test, having taken 704 wickets in a career spanning 21 years. The pacer has a total of 991 international wickets across all formats. England's cricket board chair Richard Thompson said, and I quote, "Congratulations, Sir Jimmy Anderson. This is really well-deserved honour for an England legend who has given so much to our sport." World number 1 Magnus Carlsen was held to a draw by Italian-American Grandmaster Fabiano Caruana in the first game of the semi-final at the Paris Freestyle Chess Grand Slam. Playing on black, Norway's Carlsen started on the back foot but absorbed the early pressure from Caruana. After exchanging queens on move 18, the two players battled down to their final pieces before shaking hands on a tie. In the other semi-final, Germany's Vincent Kiemer and American Hikaru Nakamura also played out draw, shaking hands after only 40 moves, with neither player overly keen to risk breaking the stalemate ahead of the second leg. A young artist in Vietnam has transformed moss into a truly unique work of art. Considered as one of the pioneers of moss art in Vietnam, the creator Hoang Tuan An brings the lush green moss landscapes to life by his imagination and hard work. The mosses used in the making are entirely preserved, meaning natural or cultivated moss has undergone various treatment processes to halt cellular growth while retaining the appearance, color and elasticity of live moss. Here we come to an end of this bulletin. Let's take a look at more than 40 artists from the Russian State Ballet who performed the classical ballet masterpiece Swan Lake at Ho Guom Theatre in Hanoi. That's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India NewsHour.